There's one announcement before we begin the talk. It wasn't mentioned last night that these two doors here, which are fire exits and the closest to when one is in the sitting room, have screens, and these screens push outward. You just need to push on both knobs and the screens will open. This is the first day of the July 89 7-day retreat at Springwater. At the beginning of a retreat, during the first talk, it is so important for people who've never been here before, as well as people who have been here before, to say something about listening to a talk. To say things about authority, authority we may automatically invest in the person who is talking. What is our relationship with each other if it is not one of authority? And whatever else comes up. The topics for a talk most of the time now come from questions and things that are being opened up, looked at, discussed in the meeting in such a way that the person who's asked the question is not revealed who it is. It remains anonymous. Don't have to worry about being exposed. What is being exposed is what is common to all of us anyways. We feel very private and personal about so much, but the beauty of looking into oneself and becoming sensitive to other people around us, close to us, far from us, presented in the news and the media. The beauty of understanding more and more about oneself is that one understands each other, other people. Because we're all of common inheritance, common conditioning, common physical conditioning, physical dynamics, physiological, anatomical, molecular. So how does one listen to a talk such as what's going on right now? First of all, let me say something about sitting on what seems like an elevated seat that has to do with my knee, not with any desire to throne above others. It sounds ridiculous, but I'm mentioning it because one time when I didn't mention it, since having had that fall during the skiing season, someone who was new to a retreat felt there was something awry with the person talking, sitting up higher, talking down, as it were, to the people. Maybe during the retreat I'll experiment with sitting on the mat. I can't sit in my usual Burmese posture yet, and may never again. Who knows? Maybe more people who would like to sit on a chair will feel encouraged by this. But this is not an intentional thing on the part of a person. All of these images are lodged deeply in the brain, deeply in our memory, personal as well as collective. That an authority speaks from a higher position. And being in the presence of someone who sits a few inches higher may instantly evoke that whole pattern of listening, of the whole attitude toward it. That's why I talk about it, because whenever we become conscious of something that is operating in all of us, then it loses its power. It does not have the same power as when it operates unconsciously, which is the great difficulty we have. All the unconscious programs, habits, patterns, images, which affect our perception of each other and of ourselves. So is it possible to listen to a talk like this with an unfolding openness? The openness of wondering what someone says without immediately wanting it to be of one kind or another, expecting it to be this, comparing it to that. We do want to hear what we want to hear, don't we? We like to be reinforced in our beliefs and opinions and experiences. And then we feel some community. And yet someone may say something that we don't feel we can agree with, or that we don't want to look at or examine. It's too hot, too dangerous, too disconcerting or upsetting. It's not said to upset each other, but we're looking together at the way this mind and body operates in our relationship with each other and when we're alone. And what one comes upon is not the ideal behavior that we have thought we have or should have, but what we're actually doing and thinking. And maybe discover the discrepancy between what we think we are and have been taught we should be and what is actually going on. Which need not be a scary thing if we're not totally invested in an ideal image about ourselves. If we are, can that come under consideration? Our investment in ideal images about ourselves and each other, good and bad. Ideal here not just meaning the positive, but also the negative ideas that we're invested in about ourselves. All of that is open to a free exploration here. It is not said to condemn human beings, even though this is how it may be perceived. And this is where the open listening comes in. Often people tell me, you don't want us to be this way, you want us to be that way, or you're very critical of this and you seem to condemn that. And I don't think I say that. I don't mean to. What is of consuming interest to me is to expose and reveal what is going on in ourselves without condemnation and without acceptance. But the mind which has been trained since our birth in right and wrong, good and bad, punishment and reward, praise and blame, that mind and the organism that goes with this mind does not hear clearly what is said. If it is so conditioned to hear praise or blame, right or wrong, then it immediately categorizes what is said into one or the other. Doesn't take any effort. The brain does it automatically. This is what conditioning is all about. And we're asking whether there can be a listening which at least at times is free from conditioning, just openly receptive, openly exploring, freely looking. A while ago, someone came to a retreat here who told me during retreat and wrote me afterwards what anger had come up about the things that were said. Either anger or feeling that it was boring. And recently, coming to retreat again, this person told me that she had listened to the tape, to the talks again. And realized that what she had heard the first time, thought I had said, was not so. I was very moved about that someone would go back and try to verify, not just insist on the angry position, because we love to have angry positions. It gives us some kind of existence to battle someone. Then we are somebody with energy, with a point of view, independent, free from authority, we think. And to have the freedom to say, well, let me check again. Maybe it wasn't like that. And to have the openness the second time to listen and to hear what was actually said and to look freely, this is very moving that this is possible. And part of the freedom of listening is not to make Toni, who is sitting on his chair and saying things, has been in this thing for many years, and not to make her into an authority figure, but to see this process of inquiring together as one among friends. It's only when we meet each other on the same level that we can really inquire together and listen together. Whether it is here in the sitting room or at home with the children, or with a wife or husband, with a friend or with the people one works with. If one is ensconced in one's position of authority as a parent or as an expert worker, as husband or wife who knows what they're doing, and these are the children or the other people who know less. If one is ensconced in any imagery or position, opinion, then we can meet each other. Then we cannot talk freely with each other and find out something new. It's impossible. One may have difficulty in relationship with. Someone mentioned the difficulty. Maybe we'll go into this sometime. With children who fight all the time with each other, bickering, demanding. How will we meet our difficulty that we obviously have with each other, in relationship with each other, at the workplace, at home, or here, maybe in a room where someone is talking, one doesn't like what the person says? How will we meet each other? So we don't just become more and more and more encased in our fortress, the fortress of me, my status, my opinions, my age-old experience, my position, my power, and whatever, which may not be all as explicit as it is said here. These things are not explicit, they're implicit. But the beauty of a silent retreat is that what is implicit can become explicit, can reveal itself, unfold, be seen, be recognized, or maybe not recognized, but seen for the first time with wonderment, that this was all these walls I was hiding behind or identifying with. And why? If they prevent the directness of relationship with someone else who is also ensconced in their opinions and position and experience and whatever. So can one begin to understand what separates us, what encloses us and isolates us from each other? And if that is to end, it cannot end through idealism or philosophy of brotherhood or religion of one mankind, one love. It has to start with discovering the walls, the barricades, the blockages, the attachment to ideas about what we are and what the others are. To come upon it directly as it operates in the mind and body, in oneself. And then wonder as it's being discovered whether it has to continue. Not it should end and then fighting it or making resolutions about becoming a non-image ridden person or becoming a free person. This is all idea work. It's not the real thing of seeing and allowing the seeing to operate, allowing the awareness and the energy of that to function freely. Question may come up, don't I have to be an authority at times? With my children, or when I am the one who teaches people biology, or on the job to do some carpentry. Well, someone who knows more about something obviously can tell others in this kind of subject matter or skill, massage or body work, studying medicine. One learns from books and one learns from others. But there are always extras attached to these authority figures. Either the others or when one is oneself. One tries to glean a certain satisfaction and power from it, which has nothing to do with the knowledge that is to be conveyed or imparted to others. One makes something out of one's position, and therefore we cannot be in communication with each other. So I just mentioned this morning, I can't talk to my doctor. We make gods out of doctors and they become that. And can't talk with ordinary mortals. I'm not saying it's so with all of them. But we are implicated in this process, in making authority figures out of people because we want that. We want to feel safe with that. And it's not safe. There may be more knowledge that someone can convey in school or skill, we talked about it. But to be fooled or deceived by this, the ambience of authority and power, to want to be in that ambience or to exude it oneself, is a dangerous game, a corrupting game. Corrupts both the one who exudes authority and the follower. Because it prevents the directness of communication on the same level at which we can explore something together. Please, if you have questions about anything that is being said here, touched upon or gone into, if you have any questions about it, you feel there's something awry, you can't see it that way, or you want to hear it again, or you haven't paid attention, the mind has wandered, but you want to hear it again, then please bring that to a meeting. Jot it down after the talk. There's pencil and paper on the ledges and on the little table. Jot it down and bring it to a meeting. Meetings are foremost for clarification among us. I may see something freshly that I didn't see because of what you say, what you point out. I may not be able to repeat what I say here, but that doesn't matter at all. Either if one needs to hear it, there are tapes being made. But the beauty of it is we can start all over again from scratch. We can start freshly to examine what we want to look at, what we need to find out. Maybe use fresh words if the old ones are too confusing or were forgotten. So please don't be shy to bring up things. I welcome that. It gives a lot of zest to this work for me to look at things, to participate in the quandaries of the mind, in the uncertainties of it. To start from uncertainty together. Not one person is certain and the other one is uncertain. We'll start from the uncertainty. The not knowing the answers, but feeling the problem deeply, superficially and deeply within ourselves, in our relationship with each other. And this is possible to reveal uncertainty when we're friends, when there's no reputation at stake or image. I'm not here to form images of people, and I hope you don't of me. The brain does it automatically, but can one be aware of it and not fall for it? Always need to see each other anew regardless of what happened before, yesterday, last year, 5 or 10 years ago, we have this immense opportunity to start freshly together here, like a new morning. Did you see it this morning, the sun coming up behind the tree? That whole tree aglow with gold, and the light filtering through and hitting every single grass. Everything in its way, lit up. For the first time, it's not yesterday's sun. It's not yesterday's dew or yesterday's grass. That grass is not yesterday's grass. So then what is it? We have to look, don't we? Look at it. A new mind looking at a new world. One thing I didn't mention yesterday, I forgot it in the opening talk, was that during meetings, when I take a break, I usually come into this room to spend some quiet 10 minutes either walking, when there's walking going on, or when people are sitting, just standing next to people, not to give each other support or to examine a posture, but just to be there, to be quietly with each other, non-judgmentally, non-specifically, non-personally, in touch with what we called last night something deeper, a silence in which everything moves, often so ear-shatteringly noisily. But here there's nothing ear-shattering. Maybe the day after tomorrow there will be fireworks, but they're distant. But in walking around quietly, this retreat is very, very crowded. Often there's space between people. I don't like to stand behind someone that evokes some kind of image of a teacher standing behind one, looking over one's shoulder at the paper one is filling out. I'm not looking. I usually don't have my eyes open. Or if I stand at the window, look outside. And since there's here not space to stand beside each other, may stand between two people. There's nothing special going on in that. I just want to mention that, so one doesn't make something out of it that it is not. Talking as much as I do all day long, these are some marvelous minutes of being together without words. Not projecting anything. listening to the bird together. Not like 2 or 3 or 40 people. Because when the mind is in that listening mode, in that open listening mode, it is not a personal mind anymore. It is just a without separation. Someone mentioned during meeting that the first day here, being out of one's habitual ways, away from home, doing something so entirely different, not having one's familiar environment to fall back onto, to move more or less automatically, which a familiar environment affords us to move automatically. Being in these new, strange, unfamiliar circumstances, not nourished by habit, a certain homesickness came up, wanting to be back with the familiar, with the certain. And the fear that arises when we are not with what is familiar and certain. The scariness of it. And feeling scary or fearful, the mind wants to project on the inner screen what is not scary, what feels safe, which is home for many people. For some people it is not. For most people it is home. Also people tell me often, it's only when I get here that home really looks good to me. One man who after many years of not coming to retreat came to the first retreat. Said, all I want to do is be home with my wife. She never looked better to me than here on this seat. The images of where there is safety and taken care ofness and clinging to that and the emotions that come up with it. Can one see that? Can there be light shed on that? And also on this feeling of insecurity. The insecurity which comes when there are no immediate habits available in which to think, move, behave, act. These moments are relatively rare because the brain so quickly tries to make habitual what is new. This is a way of dealing with the fear of the unknown, of the unfamiliar. But here we're asking, when this uncertainty and insecurity comes up, can it be examined? Examined meaning wondering about it, feeling it out, letting it do its thing, let it reveal itself, let it be there, not run away from or substitute it for, by some safe idea, some safe memory or thought about home or wherever. But live with this uncertainty and unfamiliarity. Live with not knowing. Can that happen for moments at a time in a human being? So programmed to make everything into habit, into automatism, in order not to feel insecure or unsafe, which of course is deception, because the way we live is not safe. We're constantly running into each other because we're not in touch with actuality, but clinging to ideals and ideas about each other and about how you should be and how I am, or I should be and you are. Ideas rather than the living reality of our present encounter with each other and with uncertainty. The uncertainty that emerges when the known, the familiar is questioned or is not available. Someone said, probably most people come here because of some fear. That may or may not be so. Very likely it is, because there's fear in all of us. And a tremendous yearning to be free from fear, to be done with this life of being afraid, fearful, scared, uncertain. And all the physical symptoms that go with that. Is that what one is here for? Because of fear and wanting to somehow lick it, be done with it, overcome it, or find a practice that wards against fear, can make one secure against an anxiety attack. There are no given or assigned practices here at all. If that is what one wishes to do, is up to each one who comes here. But I've already been asked whether there is a practice here that I assign counting breaths or so, and the answer is no. The question is, can one be in touch with fear without a defense? Just the raw material, which is a big portion of our daily life, individual and communal. Fear. Fear of each other, fear of the future, fear of the past, fear of ideas that arouse the fear. Can one find out more about fear rather than find a way to overcome it or to make oneself safe from it? Can one find out what it is, what this whole process is? Whole process of fear, anxiety, anguish, and that all that goes with it. The consequences of it, feelings throughout the body, maybe anger, to find out about it, because it's how we live most of the time, in fear or in repressed fear. Clinging to ideas and structures and activities to banish that fear, so it may not surface. And yet, in sitting quietly or walking quietly, openly, in that space of openness of the surface mind, the unconscious mind slips in, sends messages, projects things into that openness. That happens. So can one look at it as one looks at a rare grass, or not a rare grass, a very common grass one has never looked at? It looks so rare the first time one looks at it. What is fear? How does it come into being? How does it operate? What are its consequences? Am I interested? Are we interested in it? Some quick thought or quick memory, verbal or non-verbal, comes up in the mind. We say in the mind, there's some kind of, I don't know what it is. A memory comes up. Is there some kind of a screen, or come up as some kind of a hologram? Doesn't matter. A memory or a thought of something fearful, something we are afraid of, which might happen in the future because it has happened in the past, flits through the mind, maybe just an instant of memory, verbal or non-verbal, and immediately the whole body manifests what we call fear. Can one listen to that? One may not have been aware of this quick memory. It may have totally eluded the conscious mind. But what is palpable now are increased heartbeat, a change in breathing, something awry in the stomach or in the intestines, maybe shaking, maybe tensing up of muscles, feeling of cold sweat, all of that. Can that, as disagreeable as we always have thought this is, and as much as we've always tried to get away from this, be afraid of the symptoms of the fear? Can that be directly touched, felt with interest? What is it that I have never felt all my life, that I have felt as bad, is undesirable, must be overcome, must be run away from, or drowned out with fantasy? Is it possible to touch the disagreeable, the painful, the fearful directly as it manifests throughout the body? So directly, so closely, that there's nothing to run away from. And to observe how this physical state of anxiety, anguish, sends its own messages to the brain. There is something to be anxious about. There is something dangerous. There's something to be afraid of, says this state of the body, which has been triggered by a thought. And the brain is not sure about that. Well, there isn't something to be afraid of, because the physical symptoms spell fear and danger. So thinking is triggered, stimulated about dangerous things that could happen. maybe nothing to do with the original thought of danger, but new thoughts, because the body says danger, fear. But that is all noticeable to a mind and body that wishes to find out about itself. And wishing to find out about oneself, it's clear that running away will not bring the directness of observation, the directness of experiencing and feeling what's there. It cannot be done in running away. That's clear. It's logical, but it's also experientially clear. So one may take the step of staying with the disagreeable, the fearful, what one thinks is impossible to be with, and not go by the thought and the past, but by what's here now. And maybe find out to one's great surprise that what one thought was so impossible to be with, a moment of anguish or anxiety, is not what one thought it was. It's palpable, physical, organismic movements, which, if one doesn't immediately know what they are, allow them to send signals to the brain, what this is all about, danger. When the attention is so full there, then there are no thoughts that issue from this, except the raw reality of what has been triggered and is now manifesting. Because the body is programmed to run or fight or freeze. These are the basic fear programs that we have already inherited from our animal ancestry. In case of real danger, to either run or fight or freeze. They're not bad things. This is what this organism has been conditioned to do. And this is how it has survived. In order to run, energy has to be aroused, so adrenaline pumps into the organism. Have to be special muscle set up. Bowels have to be evacuated, so the organism becomes lighter. The heart has to beat faster to be able to run. All of that are these symptoms that we suffer from as we maybe sit in an apartment or at work. The victims, as it were, of an anxious thought, of something that could happen in the future based on what has happened in the past. The brain does not differentiate between ideas of survival. Me must survive. I must go on. I must remain how I want to be looked at or seen as. All these, we'll go into that later at another talk. All the images that we have collected about ourselves and that we are attached to and want to continue. To the brain, maintaining that is the same as maintaining the organism for survival. The same fear mechanisms are aroused to try to keep that idea of me going by running or fighting or freezing. And from that we suffer because we don't understand it. We don't understand the physical symptoms. And they don't have the outlet that they have if a wild animal is after us. Or something comes flying at us. then to run or to stem something that comes falling down on us, keep it from falling on us, all of this is then the proper function, has a real function. And all that has been aroused in the organism can be used properly and accurately. And in that use, be used up. But if we just sit in the presence of an anxious thought that we may not even be aware of, all of this physicality goes nowhere. It just plagues us. I often mention that's why it feels so good to run. I'm not saying that the only reason one runs is to run off fear symptoms, but very often it is. And when the body running, using up all this energy and whatever it's been prepared for through anxious or fearful reactions and thoughts, the draining of that feels like a relief. Also in running, one isn't occupied with fearful thoughts. One is running. Very much with I don't know, maybe as one is running, one also has fearful thoughts. I shouldn't say that. But here we're asking, as fear manifests, can one, for the first time, freshly contact that, be in touch with it, with the whole thing, investigate it, question it, feel it, be with it, call it what you will. Not scramble for a practice to get out of it, to concentrate the mind away from it. That may seem dangerous to a mind that is habituated to run or to distract itself. The fearful thought again being, will that overwhelm me? Will I lose my mind? But facing something directly and openly, there's no danger in that. The danger is in the running, in the repressing. In the keeping under control. In the not wanting to face. In that there's immense danger. Because this thing grows. All of our thoughts and images are associative. Pretty soon we can't face this because it reminds us of that. Because that reminds us of that and that. It sort of grows by association. So where will one start to face fear? It's very simple when it comes up. Right then and there. If the mind was not attentive to it and kicked in its habitual escape mechanisms, then when attention kicks in, then face it. Face what is there. Not what should I do with it, how should I proceed, but only what is it? And the open, undefended exposure of the whole thing, which is oneself. And all humanity with it. Because all humanity is afraid. Or, shall we put it differently, is programmed responses to run, fight, or freeze. But attention or awareness is not a program. It is not a conditioning. It's just tadri, that's what it is. Openness, to hear, listen, feel, taste, see what's actually there without taking a stand for or against it. Without trying to get something out of it for oneself. That's thought again. The awareness of a moment of fear or anxiety is not for the purpose of getting rid of it. It's just exposing, getting in touch with what's there, because it's there. And then seeing what happens. Not predicting a result. One may find that if that awareness is there and there's not the habitual running, then, well, where is it? Fear dissipates. Maybe not immediately the physical symptoms take a while to balance out, if they're not re-triggered by more and more thoughts. But when there's awareness of a state of anguish, then that may be gone in the looking, in the questioning, in the within a short period of time. If it isn't, it doesn't matter. One looks and touches and feels. Wondering about it. Not knowing about it. Not placing conditions on it. It better go away fast. A thought like that is the seed of anguish. And the fruit of anguish. And maybe without any intention or will whatsoever, at some moment there can be a glimpsing of that first fearful thought that has eluded one all one's life. And if there's attention there, it may not transmute itself into all of these symptoms. It's seen for what it is, and no results, no effects. If the effect has already set in, the symptoms that we talked about, it's understood immediately that this triggers that. It's so clear. the thought, this will happen to me, this might happen to me, or I did something wrong. That thought so quickly gets the whole system in turmoil. This triggers that, it's clear. So can one then sit it out, walk it out, not find fault with it or move in on it with methods. Be without conflict with whatever takes place. And open to more than what's happening in this physical organism. The air, the wind, the sky and the earth, people around one. And the calling of birds. We will end here for today.